Hey, welcome everybody to a very special episode of the Brainstorm Brewery podcast. I'm your host, Jason Alt. I'm joined by two guests tonight because Corbin isn't here, so it's a very special episode. I'll actually pause for everyone to applaud because I know that as soon as you heard Corbin wasn't here, you're like, yes! And then anything I say was you're not going to hear. So now that you're done giving a standing ovation on your drive to work, I would like to introduce my two guests for the episode. The first guest has been a guest on this podcast for 150 episodes. You know him as DJ Johnson. So,
it's actually 175, I think, now.
Don't correct me. It sickens me. Our other guest, last but certainly not least, is Liz Lynn at Devoted Druid on Twitter. Thank you for joining us again, Liz.
Yeah, my presence is very welcome, I know. Thank you.
No arguments here. And our other host, Corbin, not here. He left me to drive the bus. He left me with no instructions. I frankly don't know how he does it. As much as everyone doesn't like when Corbin's here, they don't like it when he's not here either. We feel rudderless as a podcast, and I'm rambling
Well,
a little bit.
we can just blame the listeners for not knowing what they want.
Yeah, that's true. Because if we listen to you, like, this podcast would be even more of a mess, so I don't know what to tell you. Corbin normally starts out the podcast with like a 10-minute rambling story that has no point. I don't have one. I don't have anything. So
I went to a trampoline park on Friday.
That is about as relevant to the podcast as esports are. So go for it.
I went to a trampoline park on Friday, and I got yelled at for trying to use my feet on certain obstacles that I weren't supposed to because they have like an American Ninja Warrior setup kind of thing. And
can you not use your feet on American Ninja Warrior?
You can, which is why I thought I saw this little like rectangular hanging boards thing that you had to like campus your way across, and I thought like, oh, I can just like heel hook up over this chain and then swing over, and then the 20-year-old person who
is your age
just Yeah, the person who was just working there to make ends meet was like, get down from there. You shouldn't be up there. And so I was like, okay. So that's my Corbin story. It's a bad story, and it needed to be in the podcast.
Thank you, DJ. To recap, he climbed somewhere. Someone said, get down. And then he said, okay. We did it, fam. Liz, do you have any pointless stories you'd like to tell before we get started with the podcast in earnest?
No, I'd like to start the podcast.
Okay, fine.
Let it be known that we're starting the podcast on time / early, because when we tell Corbin that we're going to get on early, he tells us that he's going to be on early, and then he's on very, very late. So
and
that's another little pointless anecdote for you.
To be clear, we've been here for an hour and a half.
Right, but we scheduled the pregame.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Is the point.
But like we were on time, we had time to pregame, and we're starting on time.
The pregame is a perk, And if you would like to hear some of what we talked about, that's another perk that's available to our patrons who go to patreon.com/Brainstorm Brewery. Give us $10, which is $2 or $2.50 an episode. That's very cheap. They'll have access
that is assuming,
to... What's that?
That's assuming any of it's usable.
I mean, they'll hear some of the other stuff. I hate for you to hear it this way, but we do after hours with other guests also. And just with each other. I didn't want you to find out that we're actually poly with our after hours.
Are you cheating on me? This is my podcast, Jason.
The whole time we were doing after hours with Corbin, I thought about you, believe me.
That brings me deep comfort, thank you.
What'll bring our listeners comfort is like, hey, they've been going for less than 5 minutes and they're already into their first segment called Breaking Bulk. What?
Breaking Bulk time. Breaking Bulk time. Break.
Oh, yeah, Breaking Bulk. There's so much good stuff.
It's a pick. Breaking Bulk. The end.
What?
For those of you who have never listened to the podcast before, Breaking Bulk is a segment that we like to do where we highlight cards that we found in bulk that are worth way more than you would think, and you should not bulk them out at the rate of like 0.3 cents a card or something like that. You should retain them and send them to a buy list. Like perhaps the buy list of our sponsor, Channel Fireball.
Or the buy list of various Magic Fest booths like 95 MTG.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those are very good.
both very good. Our sponsor and our not sponsor, both equal in DJ's eyes. All right, so now this is a guessing game where we quiz the other people on the cast, and we give a vague description of the card, and they try to guess what it is. My vague description is, this is a Dissension Gold Uncommon.
I'm just going to shoot and say Sky Hussar.
Okay. If I tell you the colors, it will give it away. One of the colors is black.
So Dissension had
Rakdos.
It was Rakdos, Simic, and
Azorius.
Yes. So it is a Rakdos card.
Yeah, I only gave you one of the colors, but even if if I'd said red, it's the same way, right? I think it's the only gold uncommon Rakdos card. It's an enchantment, if that helps.
Oh, it's it's because Croxa Pain Magnification.
Pain Magnification. Pull these
which doesn't actually trigger with Croxa.
But
I mean, like, it's still good in the deck for other reasons, but Croxa says that they lose life, and Pain Magnification requires them to take damage.
Yeah, it doesn't magnify the Croxa Pain, but the way I'm seeing people build the deck, they're doing all kind of...
It still goes in the deck, yes. I am building Croxa too, I think, and it's a fun little torture device.
Well, if you look, the top commanders of the week on EDH Rec, Croxa is actually moved up to the #1 spot of the week from Theros Beyond Death. It's not #1 overall, but it's #1 for the week. Croxa, Klothys, Uro are all being built the most this week, and the other ones kind of fell off a little bit. So Croxa is very, very brutal, and you can cast Croxa a lot of times in one turn, and it makes everybody really sad. And Pain Magnification makes people discard when they take 3 damage, which is very easy to do to people in EDH. So pull those out of your bulk. They're like $1. Get 50 cents for them. Call it a day. Who would like to go next?
I'll go next.
Okay.
My breaking bulk comes with a teachable lesson.
Ooh.
It's actually 2 cards. It is a common and I believe an uncommon. Let me double check actually.
Okay.
From Return to Ravnica and Dragon's Maze respectively. They're both commons.
Chronic Flooding is the RTR one?
Yeah.
Yep.
And the one from Dragon's Maze?
Uncommon.
It's a common, not an uncommon.
Okay.
Is it the thing with Cypher that makes you mill your hand?
Oh yeah, hidden strings.
Yep, hidden strings. So they're both 20 cents or less on TCG Low. Their market price is like $0.25. But if you look at... What's that?
No, I was just saying but as in like, but there's more to like, but wait, there's more kind of like...
Yeah. If you look at the price of them on Haruya or just like any Japanese website, they're like $3.25. Like they're like $3.25
like
US.
325 yen.
325 yen?
No, they're like 350 yen. They're just like actually money. And there's not a lot of US buy lists that are buying them, but like pull them out of your bulk, and at some point you will find a Japanese buy list, like at a GP, some company that's taking cards to Japan, and you'll get like 50 cents or $1 on them. Because Pioneer is popping off in a huge way over there, and they don't have as much like bulk supply as we do in the US. And so the teachable lesson is like you can actually do arbitrage with like bulk commons. It's just you have to find the correct opportunities for it. And Pioneer is creating a lot of those opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of lessons in that, and one of them is just like check things that aren't TCG player when you're checking prices on things.
Yeah. And a lot of sites in their metrics are starting to include MKM and Haruya, just because what the rest of the world doing matters, and some of the EDH stuff is a little bit less popular over there, and some of the competitive stuff is very scarce over there, so the price is inflated. So there's a good deal of cards changing hands across the continents just on that basis. So that's it's definitely worth it to know what's going on in Europe and Japan for sure.
Alrighty, I have a Battle for Zendikar rare, and it is, I mean, giving color on rares kind of gives it away, but it's white. It's a Battle for Zendikar white rare.
Is it Tazri or is Tazri mythic?
Tazri is mythic. I believe Tazri's Oath. I don't.
Yeah. Is it Felidar Guardian?
It is not Felidar Guardian or Sovereign. Felidar
Sovereign. Yeah. What is it?
It's not Felidar Sovereign.
That was Zendikar.
It's reprinted in VFC.
Wow, really? That's
yeah. It was. It got downshifted. It was rare in Zendikar. It was like a $12 card, casual card forever, and then it was in Battle for Zendikar. And
wasn't it in
status.
M10 first or something like that?
No, it got a stupid Walmart printing in Zendikar though. It has like one of the 5 mana symbol, like comes with 3 packs things.
Yeah, they crushed that.
Felidar Guardian has infinity copies out there, but it's still worth not bulk. So pick Felidar
Sovereign.
Yes, both of those. Because one day they'll make another format where Felidar Guardian is legal, then they'll ban it 3 months later. So you have like 5 years from now, you have another opportunity to make money off Felidar Guardian. It's the long con. It's all about the long con.
So we still don't know what your pick is. Is it Planar
Correct.
Outburst?
It is. No. It is a Battle for Zendikar White Rare, and it's Ameria Shepherd.
Oh,
that card's busted.
It is a 7 mana white angel that has landfall, and it is specifically planes are very good with this card because when you play a planes, you get to bring a permanent from your graveyard back into play. And this is just a $1-ish TCG market price card. I mean, I get these in bulk rares all the time, and I pull them out, I list them for $1.50 or whatever in my TCG store, and then I make 75 cents a piece on them. If you don't want to do all the work of putting them on your TCG store, you can buy list them out to a quarter pretty much anywhere. You can just get quarters for them. The average bulk rare price is around 8 cents right now, so you're getting more than 3 times the bulk rate when you pull out Ameria Shepherds.
I think all non-green landfall cards that are not red also are super underrated. Ameria Shepherd, Admonition Angel, Royal Elemental, all like super underrated. It's not like those colors don't end up getting paired with green anyway, and especially
I mean it's the ones that generate value because like there are some stinkers like Gouldraw's landfall thing from the same cycle or whatever, but there are definitely some quality landfall creatures that will continue to go up in price because people like to play their lands,
and they like to play lots of extra lands. So if you're going to play a bunch of extra lands, why not just steal all their permanents?
Or bring back all your own.
That's great. And DJ, that typing you hear is DJ entering all those cards into our spreadsheet, which is accessible to our patrons at patreon.com/Brainstorm Brewery. You can get the picks on Monday night when we record, rather than waiting till Thursday or Friday to get our...
It was mostly me trying to make sure I spelled Shepherd correctly.
You never played Mass Effect?
No.
It's not on the Nintendo Switch, I get it. Do we want to talk about why Ajani Strength of the Pride is spiking? Do we want to have that discussion?
I'll talk about that.
I have no idea why that card's going up, but I'm not opposed to talking about that.
I was joking, but if you know, that's cool.
I know exactly why. I played in the Team Open this weekend in Richmond, and my standard player in round 8 or something, round 7 or 8, plays against a mono white deck that is playing things like Linden, that Ajani that makes Pride Mates, Heliod, main deck Hushbringers and Tomix, and absolutely steamrolled us. Like we played a Nissa and couldn't plus because there was a Tomic in play. We played an Uro that didn't, like it was a 6/6.
Oh, because your lands can't get targeted.
There was a Hushbringer, so we played an Uro and it was like a 3 mana 6/6, but it didn't matter because there was like a 9/9 Ajani's Pride Mate. The deck looked very powerful. You know, he curved out in one game Hushbringer into Heliod, or into Heliod into Linden, and then just like attacked and made his things huge.
That's amazing.
What is Linden for somebody who definitely knows what that card is?
Oh, I know this one. Can I take it? Linden makes these tiny little truffles that are about 30 calories, and they're perfect. You put them in the freezer.
Jason?
What?
Shut up.
You can't say that.
Linden. It's my podcast. Linden is a triple white pip, 2/3. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it's a triggered ability that gains you 1 life. Each instance of that triggers your Ajani's Pride Mate or your Heliod, your pick.
Oh wow, this card's a 3. This card's a 3/3.
Everybody complained about
3/3?
how bad Linden was when it was spoiled. Everyone's like, white sucks. This is proof that they don't care about white because green got a big guy that fights when you play a 5/4. I don't know. What.
Yeah, this is a 3/3.
It's a 3/3? That's just a good rate. But yeah, the deck was just like a very reasonable aggressive deck that could go long. It's probably very bad against blue-white, but you know, the Ajani's a card that helps there, and also Ajani's a card from M20, which doesn't exist.
Right, so it's just sort of like the Nico Bolas effect.
Right, yeah. It's
Where
seeing some
core
amount
set
of play.
cards are not.
Well, it went
open
from
nearly as
$5
much
to
as-
$15, like within a 3-day period, but it's settling down a little bit.
I think the deck needs to like post a big result for that price to stick, but the deck looked very good. I considered trying to convince my standard player to play it this next coming weekend in Philly for the Open, and like if that's a real player in standard, that Ajani is going to hold some value, and yeah,
being able to make the Pride Mates is pretty brutal, because that's Ajani's -2. Is you create a basically a Pride Mate.
I mean, this is also a price that could theoretically just stick in the long term, just because it's a casual life gain card with low supply. So I
That's
mean,
also
like
totally reasonable.
I can see a world where Pioneer shifts, the meta changes, decks come and go or whatever, and then this card just doesn't drop in price because people on Amazon or Card Kingdom are willing to pay $18 for it because it says the word life gain on it 80 times.
And theoretically, you might want to play something very similar to that standard deck in Modern, just so you're not a dumb Ballista combo deck. You are like a white life gain, grow your huge Pride Mates deck that can occasionally just rip a Ballista and win the game. I don't know if that's viable, but I think it's worth testing.
it's definitely like a nice different angle you can take with it.
This is a card that's I can see staying $15.
I mean, yeah, when a Planeswalker, like a year after it's printed, gets used in something, like no one's going to run out and buy M20 packs, so it's pretty much the supplies with the supply. And there's there's nothing enforcing the box price anymore either.
And speaking of Pioneer, there were 2 other big events this past weekend on 2 different hemispheres, or 2 different parts of the world. Brussels and Nagoya were this past weekend. Both were very big Pioneer events, one of which had a massive amount of Inverter of Truth in the top 8, and the other one, not so much.
So our advice to people last week was, hey, sell Inverter Truth while you can. Do you stand by that advice?
I stand by that advice the same way I stand by the advice to sell Oko. And that it's sort of like a forest for the trees kind of deal where, like, I would rather tell everybody always to sell every card they open at the pre-release and be right 90% of the time, and then if I'm wrong 10% of the time, you're still going to make money over a longer period of time.
Yep, just so, by making the right plays. And also, holding on to the stuff sucks, Because you hold too long and then you're holding the bag when everyone who sold out made all their money, and who are you selling to at that point,
Yeah, like, imagine holding on to M19 Tezzeret that pre-sold at $30 and then it drops to 10 or whatever. Or imagine trying to buy into, what's his name, like Calyx, or just based on the fact that, oh, this is a cheap Planeswalker, of course it'll be good, and then it's garbage. Like, I would rather tell people to sell into hype, always sell to the shiny new thing, shiny new player, just sell the shiny new stuff, and just churn money over and over through high numbers of transactions, and just look at things through I don't know what the opposite of results oriented is, but that, like, don't worry about, like, oh man, I sold Inverter of Truth at $5 instead of the $12 I could have gotten. That sucks. No, it's fine. You went from 50 cents to $5. That's great. Move on to the next thing. Inverters, like,
it's like Corbin with his fetch land. Save 200% for the next guy.
It's the meme where the guy's looking at the other girl, and like the new girl is the shiny new thing that you should try to be selling, and then Inverter of Truth's like, wait, but I'm cool. I'm $10. Don't worry about it. Just forget it. It's the girlfriend meme, and then look at the shiny new thing. That was probably my favorite rant.
My favorite thing on this podcast that's happened at least 3 times in the last year is DJ describing a meme. He's like, it's the ice frog meme, with the poop frog with the ice. Nobody?
Really, the moral of the story
panel.
Is MTG Finance is a lot like cheating on your partner, is what DJ's saying.
Yes. Absolutely.
I know that's right.
Both will leave you wholly unfulfilled and broke.
That is true.
Emotionally and physically.
Especially if your partner's not involved at all in MTG Finance and therefore they pay all the bills.
Yes. Then it becomes this weird financial dominating situation, and nobody likes that.
People like that, or it wouldn't be a thing, DJ.
Yeah.
They like
players...
the fact that they don't like it, Jason. That's the thing.
I told you that.
Magic players are masochists, and Magic vendors are sadists. That's just how it works.
Yep, that's true.
That's
why Magic vendors love it when you when a card spikes and then you sell, to their old buy list price. You're like, oh, I found a bunch of these for $1, and then you sell them for 50 cents, and then the card spikes again a year later, and then you go back to that same dealer and pay $8 for your same old copies, and all they did was hang on to them and wait for you to figure out that the card was good, and that's why it went up the first time, you idiot. And then they're like, oh, you're back, I see. Grovel. It's amazing.
Oh my god, my favorite thing, I say this a lot, my new favorite thing, at least for this week in Magic Finance vending life, is when somebody brings a card to me and I give them a price, and then they go shop it around and they say no to me, and then they come back 7 hours later and I offer them yet less and they take it. Oh,
oh baby. That is like heroin to me.
Oh yeah. So it's the Darth Vader meme. The deal has altered.
Pray I do not alter it farther. What happens in the second panel of that meme, DJ?
I make a lot of money.
No, what happens in the second panel of that meme is Han Solo comes into the room, sees Darth Vader, and he's like, oh, he's the most powerful Sith in the entire universe. Better pull out my blaster and just imagine I can shoot him. He's wearing full armor. That's who I want to be. I don't want to be oh no, we're screwed. I want to be the guy that just starts blasting futilely, and then
it's established that Han Solo's a himbo.
We've moved on to the Danny DeVito meme. So anyway, I started blasting.
You must not be very busy at the 95 booth if you got all day to look up memes.
I was so busy during Jersey. Don't you? I'll have meme time in Phoenix and Reno. February's the meme month.
Jersey
two
was
GPs in garbage cities on the West Coast back to back. Let's do it.
Somehow in Phoenix in February it's still 125 degrees. I don't get it.
Out of all the cities you could have picked, Phoenix, and then 2 weeks later Reno, and there's also Gamma the week before Reno or the week after Reno. I can't remember which, but they put Gamma back to back to back, so that people have to fly out and then back.
What is Gamma?
It is the gamers something. So it's a big convention of store owners.
So you don't even know what it is.
I don't know what the acronym is, but I know what the event is. It's a big convention of store owners and LGSs and trade. It's a big trade show for TCG Player goes, and they invite a bunch of stores, and
I think that's what it is, DJ. I think it's gamers are mostly assholes.
It appears to be the Game Manufacturers Association. Maybe.
So what is the A? What is the A in Gamma? GMA is.
I don't know, man.
It's Gamma. Or Gma.
It's Grandma.
Yeah.
It's the Grandma convention.
I'm not gonna lie, Grandma convention.
That's Corbin's Scrabble tournament that he covered.
Is that esports? Is Scrabble esports now?
It's RSTLN esports.
Scrabble Arena coming near you. Now with cool visual effects that make your grandma have a seizure.
Now that they figured out how to make competitive Scrabble on the TI-83, I don't think anybody's going to play it in person anymore. They're just going to get on their Angel Fire account and just play online. That's something else. Yeah, it's going to be jarring. People are going to be real confused. They're going to be like, what did I miss? Because I don't go to patreon.com/Brainstorm Brewery and have access to the after hours. That's just a thing that's going to happen. Sometimes there's going to be a real hard cut, and it's going to be real confusing. And another thing that's real confusing is the Pioneer metagame is a format that's driving a lot of prices. It's driving a lot of finance. It's new. It's exciting. It's a competitive format, so the people in Europe and Japan are on board. We're sending lots of cards over there. And luckily, we have somebody who understands Pioneer very well on the podcast tonight, and that is DJ. Take it away,
yes.
Deej.
So we had 2 Pioneer Players Tours events last weekend.
Yes.
One in Brussels and one in Nagoya. We have another one coming up this weekend in Phoenix. And we have a lot of metagame data from like high-level play for the first time in the Pioneer format, which means that things are going to start to kind of crystallize. We're going to see what decks are actually real, which ones aren't. And prices are going to start to rise and solidify based on this new information that we have. The Players Tour in Brussels had a pretty diverse top 8, whereas the one in Nagoya was a lot of Dimir Inverter.
Well, so do you think that's just symbolic of Japanese players loving to draw cards?
It could be, but I also think...
I mean, like, we've seen Modern and Legacy GPs where it's like, oh, there's nine Fairy players in the top 8 of this GP. Just because people like to play Bitter Blossom over there.
I think that is definitely indicative of that a little bit. I think it's also indicative of, like, the European testing process. Just kind of, like, you get more... There's just, like, a bigger swath of lands. There's just, like, more different people testing, and it's less homogenous deck building.
That makes sense.
I think the real winners of this weekend, in terms of, like, relevant finance information, are Spirits and Inverter. Spirits is a deck that's, like... There's 2 banned Spirits decks in the top 8 of Brussels, and I believe 1 in Nagoya.
One won Nagoya. I know that much.
Yeah. The banned Spirits deck has, like, 4 cards in it that are kind of low supply that definitely could pop off. Like, Spell Queller, Supreme Phantom, Selfless Spirit, and Mausoleum Wanderer are all, like, rare, and Coco even, are all rares from sets, like, don't have a ton of supply, realistically, just because, like, so much of it was bought up by modern players and, like, is in collections now. Or, like, they're from a core set like Supreme Phantom. And, like, if the decks you keep seeing play, those cards are just going to keep rising in stock as people buy them, and there's some real moves to be made to make some money with this deck.
Yeah, I mean, I especially like Mausoleum Wanderer and cards like Rattle Chains, because Rattle Chains specifically is just like a card that every time I look at it, and every time I find it in bulk rares, I pull it out, I look it up, I'm like, how is this not even $1? The card has 19 lines of text, and then I put it back. And so I think that there's a lot of just Rattle Chains sitting in bulk rares, and that's just a card that, if you were going to buy a lot of one card, I wouldn't hate buying that, I guess.
That definitely makes sense. It's also, like, always going to be a 4 in the deck.
And its price is, like, its price is where it is on the basis of, like, the amount of modern play it's getting, and I don't know what factor we're increasing it by, but, like, you know, anybody that's not necessarily playing the deck in Modern, you know, could potentially play the deck in Pioneer, so it's opening up a lot of new demand for a card that's already, you know, it's in high supply, but it's also in high demand. So, like, Rattle Chains is a $1 card, but it's not going to jump to $2.
I very well could. Like, it could be $2, it could be $3. I could see that, because Pioneer is going to be as popular as Modern, and it's a smaller format, so there's more homogenous, like, deck selection choices. Like, you know, more people are going to play Banned Spirits because there's not an ad nauseum deck that someone can play, and there's not, like, a Countryside Crusher or Loam deck. There's just fewer things that are actually doable.
Like, I'm viewing Rattle Chains through, like, a Blood-Soaked Champion lens, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's exactly how I'd
like,
see it.
It's just a bulk rare that was sitting in the box for forever, and now it's good in one niche deck, and it goes from 50 cents to $2 or $3, and that's the kind of movement I want to see on that card.
Sure. But I'm saying in general, when the supply or for the demand for something doubles, it doesn't just, like, double the price. It hits a supply tipping point, and then, you know, it's a feeding frenzy. So, yeah, it could go to $2, but, you know, in general, when a card hits a supply tipping point, the price goes a little bit nuts. And it usually spikes to, like, you know, a certain number and then settles about halfway between its pre- and post-spike price. And on relatively recent non-mythic stuff, that doesn't happen as much. But, you know, I think that new Innistrad block is far enough away that I think something like that could happen.
Yes.
And the other big winner of the weekend was Dimir Inverter, which has a couple of, like, super relevant things for finance in Jace Wielder of Mysteries, who spikes to around $5-6, I think.
It's up to $7, I think, now.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and, like, that card was, you know, I was paying 50 cents for them or $1 for them or whatever for the longest time. Just because, like, it was a Planeswalker, but now it's actually worth something, and more things from war being worth something mean that like that set's more robust, and so maybe stores will crack it. I don't know.
Oh, I think I have NFC miscuts of that Jace. I gotta look.
Ooh.
That's hot.
You probably do. There, what, 2 on that sheet?
Yeah. So another thing about the inverter deck specifically, I have heard many a player who are better than me calling for the ban of Dig Through Time specifically, because that's a card that, if it's banned in Modern and it's banned in Legacy...
Yeah, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
They sort of like, they did a real light initial banning just to see how it shook out, but yeah, I think something like that, the days are probably numbered.
So does Dig Through Time being banned neuter the deck completely, is my question to Liz.
So I would say no, because what's his name? Ishimaru Shintaro top aided with a version not playing Dig Through Time, but instead being like a blue devotion deck that happens to have Inverter in it. Beyond that, like, Dig Through Time definitely needs to go from the format, in my opinion. I played in the open, like I said, and 3 of my 4 losses came from my opponent just like killing a Dig Through Time after I thought seized them, and it's just miserable to play against. It's way too powerful. It's sort of enabling a couple of combo decks that like would actually be a fine power level without Dig. And the Dimir Inverter deck still can exist, and I think the Lotus Field decks can still exist without Dig. They're just less explosive or less consistent. But like Dig Through Time, for as powerful as it is still very cheap. Like it buy lists for $2 or $3.
Yeah, it's been a $5 card for the past month or two.
I think
it's just a ban risk.
I think everyone's real nervous about it. Reprint risk and ban risk, I think in general, kind of, people wait to see how that kind of thing shakes out.
Other decks that I think are potentially winners from the event. One of the decks that I personally have championed in the format is Mono Black Vampires, and Dmitry Budakov top aided in Nagoya with it. I think a card that is underpriced for a lot of reasons is Sorin Imperious Bloodlord. It's like $12. The card is from M20, sees play in what I think is one of the better Pioneer decks, has the word vampire on it 3 times.
Yep.
Is a 3-mana Planeswalker, and just like, that card has all the makings of being a $20 card in 6 months.
I mean, that card was expensive before Pioneer just for casual alone. It's like the Ajani, right? It's just a parallel where it's a tribal casual all-star that also just suddenly started seeing playing constructed while also having a very low core set supply. So Sorin's another card where, like, the second Wizard's Prince just a random 8-mana vampire in a random set a year or 2 from now, this card still just gets better.
Right, exactly.
And I mean, they've shown willingness to print cards like that. It's just for casualness alone, like Blood Tyrant and other just sort of like wacky high CMC vampires that just they look fine as splashy mythics or whatever on some future plane 2 years from now that's unannounced, but that suddenly makes Sorin really good. And I mean, this is just a card that is very hard to reprint, and I didn't know it was down to $13. I thought it was still like 18 or 19. So that's, yeah.
For as disastrous as this podcast has been, we've got some real good finance info in here. The people are getting what they paid for.
Yeah, that's the trick. Is
that's this podcast. I don't know what you think it's like, but
it's
always a
podcast.
disaster with finance info.
Yeah, you got to weed out the people who turn it off in the first 5 minutes
because we talk about esports.
I would like to advocate for people to get their mana bases while they're cheap. I think just like picking up play sets of temples and Czech clans or castle whatevers or
castles aren't that cheap really at this point.
I mean they're cheaper than what I think they'll be further down the line.
I agree with EJ that like Castle Locktwain is totally berserk. Castle Ardenvale is blue-white players are gonna play that thing forever.
Yeah,
just get them now.
Like for context, Castle Locktwain TCG low on this card is $3.75 with 78-cent shipping. The last sold listing of this card is $7.94. That was most likely through a direct seller because an individual was either lazy or didn't care enough to like want to put together a bunch of different packages,
or they couldn't opt out.
Do 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 do.
But I mean, this Castle of Locthwain is, and other castles like it, have shown a willingness to be more expensive than they look right now. And these are just lands that have a very, very low opportunity cost to put in your deck. And they used to be $1, and they're going to creep up. And then it's going to be one of those cards like 2 years from now where you're like, wait, I remember these are $3. They're lands. Invest in real estate. Basic finance thing. Especially invest in lands that have monocolors, low opportunity cost that provide card advantage over time in a format with minimal land destruction. Whew, said that all in one breath.
You did it, DJ. You got there. Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. Invest in real estate. That's a thing. So before we go to our final segment of the podcast, which is our pick of the week, which I know everybody is champing at the bit for, which is why we put it at the end, because you would turn off the podcast if we put it first. We had a Patreon supporter, Joey D, send us an audio clip, which we said like years ago we want people to do, and nobody's done it before him, so thanks, Joey. And he sent us an audio pick of the week, or audio... Never do that. He sent us an audio breaking bulk, and you can listen to his audio clip now.
Hi, Brew Crew, podcast listeners. It's friend of the podcast and loyal patron, Joey D, also known as @DeathandStuff on Twitter. I found some surprise value in my bulk this weekend and wanted to share it with you all. Time for some breaking bulk. The card is an uncommon legendary artifact from Amonkhet with a converted mana cost of 3. The card is Bantu's Monument.
All right, so what do we think of Joey's pick?
I think all of the monuments are very, very good picks out of bulk. They are legendary, which not a lot of people know, so they trigger all the weird... Whenever you play a legendary permanent, you can get them with, like, Dahlia's
Dahlia's lieutenants.
Lancers. No, Lancers.
No!
Lancers. got.
Thalia's Lancers is a card I was like, foils of this could be good, and then like, just kidding, they're at Walmart now.
Yeah. So all the monuments are very strong. They're very good 60 card casual cards, and that's a format that I don't think gets enough appreciation in the competitive Magic world, because
it's so hard to track for us.
Yes.
Like we're like EDH track and MTG top 8 and TCG player. We're like,
yes.
What are 60 card casual players doing? The only way you know that is what you're selling to them on TCG player.
And if you were one, like it's much easier, I find, to understand the mindset of that less competitive player, because if you come to Magic through something like Hearthstone or through something like Legends of Runeterra or just any other card game, and you already have that spike competitive mindset, it's very hard to just like wear the skin of that casual player. And as somebody who came into Magic through casual Yu-Gi-Oh! And competitive Yu-Gi-Oh!, I was a casual Magic player while I was a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Player. It's really interesting how I just view cards in a different lens a lot of the time. And the monuments are perfect for that, like, quote, cards I own format, which Wizards has reported based on their internal data is the most popular format up with Commander. Like, it's Commander, and then it's cards I own, and then it's, like, limited. Those are the 3 most popular formats. Just ever, like as of a whole number of players playing them right now.
I never had more fun trading than when I was going to like campus Magic night, or like community college, just people meeting in the cafeteria. Like the trades were fantastic, the pickup games were great. It was just finding those people is just a fantastic thing, and like I felt like I was evangelizing, like bringing the world of organized Magic to them. I'm like, do you know people meet in stores where you can buy cards? And they're like, oh, are there snacks? Yes, there are snacks. Join us, brethren. Like, I felt like I was doing outreach, like I was.
And a lot of those decks are very reliant on very base level synergies, just like color or tribe, or just things that are very obvious to put together. And the monuments just tie that together really well, because the blue player who wants to build their Sphinx deck or whatever is like, man, blue doesn't have ramp, but it does have Sapphire Medallion, it does have Sky Diamond, and it has Kefnit's Monument. And those are the kinds of cards that are very attractive to this like 60 card casual player, where it's just forums of various tribes and base level synergies. So I love all the monuments long-term. I mean, short and long-term. If you want to throw them in a box for a year, they'll probably be worth more. But, I mean, they're very, very quick sellers for me on TCG players. So Bontus and Oketras specifically are generally the best because Oketras makes tokens and Bontus is life drain, and those are very, again, very base level synergies that are very easy to put together. But all the monuments are good. And rant.
Yeah, that was a good audio pick, Joey. I appreciate that that break in bulk for us, and I appreciate you sending in the audio clip. That's that is a perk that we reserve for all of our patrons who go to patreon.com/Brainstorm Brewery. If you would like to contribute to the podcast in that way, send us an audio recording of your break in bulk, and we will play it on the cast. Speaking of pick of the week, which I tried to say a few times there, referencing breaking bulk, it's time for pick of the week. Pick of the week, pick of the week, pick of the week. Time for the pick of the week.
Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. Mine's Castle Vantris. Da-da-da-da.
Is that... I can't tell if you were like... I'm putting the space in the episode for JJ to like play the music over, but are you saying da-da-da-da, mine's... Like, is that how you're telling us?
I'm a wild card, man. I don't know what I was doing.
Okay, man. That's fine. It's totally fine to like not know what you're doing. We don't know what we're doing. As much as Corbin is completely useless, we are lost without him. So, with me driving the bus, yeah, no one's driving the bus. I'm a wild card too. So, you know what? Yeah, you can hum and say Castle Vantris. Do it, man. Is that all the analysis we're gonna do? I criticized your humming.
We did the analysis of the castles 20 minutes ago.
That's a good point.
None of it has changed in that 20-minute time span. Wizards hasn't announced a new format. They haven't banned any cards. There hasn't been a Twitter post made by any content creators lauding the abilities of cards that aren't castles. So I mean, castle's still good. I like the blue one specifically because it's one of the cheaper ones. But that's about where I got.
Having had time to reflect over the last 20 minutes on my pick, I still stand by it. I don't know why I'm doing this Southern gentleman voice, but it's less awkward than your singing introduction. I may be a simple country lawyer who went to a schoolhouse barefoot to get my law degree, but I do know the Castle Vantris is a good pickup at its current price.
When I graduated from the School of Hard Knocks, I dare say declare that I fucking...
I do declare.
Pick of the week.
I've always relied on the kindness of strangers to help me buy out my pick of the week, World Gorge of Dragon, which is still available under $6 on TCG Player, despite being $9 or $10 elsewhere. I didn't have to say elsewhere, but I did, because I'm committing to the character of the Southern gentleman.
Yeah. You didn't think that Little House on the Prairie cast played Magic, but little did you know.
What else is there to do on the prairie? But kill people with World Gorger Dragon and their Croxa Titan of Death's Hunger deck, which, again, I would like to reiterate is the #1 most built deck of the week on EDH Rec. And there's some people out there like, well, EDH Rec doesn't track the people that don't register the decks on EDH Rec. Yeah, okay, cool, but do you really think that we're not getting an accurate like slice of the deck population? Come on, man. Like, we're absolutely getting a sample, and that sample's representative, and guess what? If the highest percentage of decks on EDH Rec for the week are Croxa, then the highest percentage in the wild is Croxa, unless the only people building Croxa decks are the ones registering them on EDH Rec. Otherwise, it's a wash, man. So I don't want to hear it anymore. Croxa's more popular than some of these other decks that, you know, were obvious out the bat. Like everyone's Sedona, with what's that card? Shielded by Faith. We're going to build that deck. And you know what? That was obvious at first, and a lot of people built it. But hey, people building Croxa decks now. That's the new shit. So get your World Gorge of Dragons. I'm not going to drop my mic because it's expensive, but I kind of want to drop my mic. Liz, what you got?
I talked about my pick of the week about 20 minutes ago also. So it's Sorin Imperious Bloodlord. I think the Vampires deck is very good in Pioneer. Personally, I think it's good. I've been playing it a lot. Cards low supply, says Vampires 3 times. Everything I said earlier, I'll just repeat it for the sake of the viewers.
Yeah, maybe
listeners.
you should, because that's how we have this podcast. We have segments, and then we talk about the cards within the segment. I didn't authorize you to talk about your pick of the week earlier. Either one of you.
Yeah, well, it's my podcast.
Yeah, that's true. But DJ should know better, because he's been on your podcast for a while now. So, like, I feel
that's
like...
true.
Yeah, so he really dropped... You're fine. Obviously, you're beyond reproach. This is your podcast. But DJ...
Thank you.
DJ really dropped the ball. And you know what? We should expect better out of him. We got to be on our best behavior when Corbin's not here. But hey,
I can't tell which of those things was least true.
Definitely the
the best
behaving when
behavior
Corbin's
part.
not here. Yeah.
well, we have to be on some sort of behavior. So I think this is the part of the podcast where our behavior is to talk about where we can be found online. Why don't you go first, Liz?
You can find me on Twitter at Devoted Druid. Don't find me anywhere else. That's weird.
Yeah, right? You stalker. How did you even find her Venmo? Do you want to plug your Venmo? That could be a thing.
Yeah,
right?
my Venmo's at Devoted Druid. You can send me $20 for the sake of sending me $20. If you want to at me on Twitter, it's $5. If you want to DM me on Twitter, it's $10. I may not respond to you.
$10 for maybe a response. That is a good deal in my experience. DJ, where can you be found, sir?
You can find me on Twitter at Rose of Thorns. The second O is a 0. You can find me at most North American Magic Fests. I will be in Phoenix this weekend, and then unfortunately I will also be in Reno. So my February is not looking great, but I will be in Detroit in March. Louisville's a maybe. I think I'll be in Louisville, though. You can find me... Yeah. But you can find me on TCG Player at Card Garden. You can search hashtag Card Garden to find my deals. Or DM me. It's free to DM me, but the cards will cost you.
Okay.
If you want to buy Magic cards from me.
I'm on Twitter at Jason E. Alt. At the top of my profile is a pin post that says all the different places you can find me. I write some articles, I do some podcasts, and, you know, I sell some cards. I'll sell you some cards. You hit me up, you're like, hey, I need some cards. I'll get you some cards. I do this podcast. It's a good time. And my Patreon is patreon.com/Brainstorm Brewery, because without Corbin here to stop me, I will pitch that Patreon as many times as I possibly can in a 1 hour period. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. We'll have a different guest and no Corbin next week. So if this is something that you like, guest plus no Corbin, that's a good combination for you. You will definitely want to check out next week's podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Exit song, take us out.
This is a 35-minute episode, tops.
Yeah, once we cut everything out.
Dun, 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 dun.